My name is Isabel Hartley, and I'm about to tell you how I brought down a CEO who thought he was untouchable. At 38, I'd spent my entire career building something meaningful at Virion Insights, rising through the ranks to become Vice President of Strategic Development. I believed in the work we did, in the data analytics that helped companies make better decisions. That belief died the day Trent Wexler fired me in front of 200 colleagues at a lakeside resort in Montana. The morning started like any other corporate retreat. Glacier Lake Resort sprawled across pristine wilderness, its log cabins and conference centers designed to make executives feel both rustic and pampered. I'd arrived early to the main lodge, coffee in hand, reviewing my presentation on next quarter's product roadmap. The room filled slowly with familiar faces, some avoiding eye contact, others offering nervous smiles. Something was off, but I couldn't place it. Trent took the stage at 9 sharp, his signature black turtleneck and designer jeans screaming Silicon Valley wannabe. He'd been CEO for 6 months, brought in by the board to inject startup energy into our established firm. What he'd actually injected was chaos, fear, and a vocabulary consisting entirely of buzzwords. Good morning, innovators. His voice boomed through the speakers as Coldplay's Viva la Vida played in the background. Today marks a pivotal transformation in Virion's journey toward operational excellence. I should have run then. When a CEO starts talking about operational excellence at a strategy retreat, someone's getting fired. For 20 minutes, he pontificated about synergies and paradigm shifts while PowerPoint slides flashed behind him. Then the music swelled again, and a new slide appeared, streamlining leadership for maximum impact. Change is never easy, Trent continued, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. But sometimes we must make difficult decisions to unlock our true potential. Isabel Hartley has been a valued member of our team. But as we evolve, we need leaders who align with our new vision. The blood drained from my face. He was firing me. Here. Now. In front of everyone. Isabel, would you please come forward? 200 pairs of eyes turned to me. Some colleagues gasped, others looked away. A few, I noticed with bitter clarity, were nodding in approval. They'd chosen their side before I even knew there were sides to choose. I stood on legs that felt disconnected from my body and walked to the stage. Each step echoed in the sudden silence. Trent's smile was all teeth and no warmth. We thank you for your contributions, he said, extending his hand as if this were a normal transition. Security will help you gather your belongings. Security? He'd brought security to a leadership retreat. 2 uniformed guards appeared at the stage's edge. Not touching me, but close enough to make their purpose clear. I looked at Trent, searching for some explanation, some hint of humanity. His eyes were already moving past me, back to his presentation. Now, let's talk about our exciting new direction. He continued as I was escorted off stage. The walk to the exit felt endless. Some colleagues were crying, others applauded Trent's bold leadership. Most sat frozen, probably calculating their own job security. The guards loaded me onto a golf cart like I was some kind of criminal being removed from the premises. As we drove past the lake, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, too numb to care. But the name on the screen made me look twice. Graham Locke. Graham wasn't just any investor. He owned 42% of Virion Insights and had been instrumental in building the company from a startup to a major player in the analytics space. He rarely communicated directly with anyone below C-suite level. The message was brief. Are you free to talk? Let's discuss taking him down together. I read it 3 times, sure I was misunderstanding. The golf cart deposited me at my cabin, the guards watching as I packed my belongings. My hands shook as I folded clothes and laptop into my suitcase, but my mind was racing. Graham Locke wanted to take down Trent Wexler, and he wanted my help. An hour later, my phone rang. Graham's voice was gravelly, tired. Isabel, I'm sorry about what happened. That display was... He paused, searching for words. Beneath contempt. Can you meet me at the old boathouse on the North Shore? 20 minutes. The boathouse was a relic from the resort's earlier days, before corporate retreats and wellness seminars. I found Graham standing on the dock, staring across the lake. At 71, he still cut an imposing figure, his white hair and weathered face giving him the look of someone who'd seen everything and suffered no fools. I've been watching Trent since the board brought him in, he began without preamble. They didn't consult me, just presented it as a done deal. Said we needed fresh blood, someone who understood the modern market. And you disagreed. He turned to face me. I've built and sold 12 companies. Isabel, I know the difference between innovation and bullshit. Trent Wexler is running a con, and he's using Virion to do it. My pulse quickened. What kind of con? Graham pulled out a folder from his jacket. Revenue inflation, phantom products, cooked books. He's positioning Virion for a quick sale to foreign buyers, planning to cash out before anyone realizes the numbers don't add up. I flipped through the documents. Financial projections that seemed impossibly optimistic. Product launches for technology that didn't match our development timeline. Partnership announcements with companies I'd never heard of. Why show me this? I asked. Because you're one of the few people at Virion who actually understands how the business works. You know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. And now, he smiled grimly. You have every reason to help me dig them up. You want me to be a whistleblower. I want you to help me save the company we built. Trent fired you because you asked too many questions. Your quarterly reviews always included uncomfortable truths about delayed projects and inflated projections. He needed you gone before the board meeting next month. I thought about my 15 years at Virion. The products I'd helped develop, the teams I'd mentored, the integrity we'd once prided ourselves on. What do you need me to do? Graham's smile was sharp as winter wind. Everything. Documents, emails, recorded conversations. We're going to build a case so airtight that the board will have no choice but to act. And when we're done, Trent Wexler won't just lose his job. He'll lose everything. Back in my cabin, I sat with my laptop and a glass of wine, processing what had just happened. In the span of 3 hours, I'd gone from valued executive to unemployed to corporate spy. The smart move would be to take my severance, update my LinkedIn, and move on. But smartness had gotten me fired in front of 200 people. Maybe it was time for something else. I opened my phone and scrolled through my contacts. If Graham wanted information, I'd need allies still inside Virion. People who'd seen what I'd seen, who'd questioned what I'd questioned. The first name that came to mind was Clara Mensing. Clara had been my executive assistant for 3 years. More than that, she'd been my institutional memory, keeping track of every meeting, every decision, every promise made and broken. When I'd been escorted out, she'd been one of the people crying. I typed carefully, Clara, I know this is awkward, but I need to ask you something. Are you somewhere private? Her response came quickly. In my room. Oh my God, Isabel, I can't believe what he did. Are you okay? I'm fine, listen. I can't go into details, but I need to know, do you still have access to my old files? The ones on the shared drive. A pause. Then, they locked your account, but I might have backed up some things, just in case. Why? My heart raced. Clara, brilliant Clara, always one step ahead. Can we meet when you get back to the city? Coffee, like old times? Of course, Isabel. There are things you should know about what's been happening since you left this morning. What kind of things? Trent announced a reorganization. He's bringing in his own people for all senior positions. And he specifically mentioned that all previous strategic initiatives would be under review, including yours, including mine. Which meant he was planning to bury not just me, but everything I'd worked on. Every project, every innovation, every inconvenient truth about what actually made money versus what looked good in a presentation. Clara, do me a favor. Back up everything you can, quietly. Already on it. See you Tuesday. Tuesday, I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The lake stretched out below, deceptively peaceful. Somewhere in this resort, Trent was probably holding court, convincing my former colleagues that my firing was necessary for the company's evolution. Some would believe him, others would fear him. But a few, I hoped, would remember what Virion used to stand for. My phone buzzed again. Graham. One more thing. Trent's planning to announce a new product at the board meeting, something called Lucent Edge. Ever heard of it? I frowned. I'd overseen every major product development initiative. Lucent Edge wasn't on any roadmap I'd seen. No. What is it supposed to be? That's what we need to find out. Because according to my sources, it's already being pitched to potential buyers as Virion's next big innovation. The thing that will triple our valuation. A product that didn't exist 6 months ago, now positioned as our salvation. The con was bigger than I'd imagined. Graham, I'll find out everything I can, but I need something from you. Name it. Protection. If we're going after Trent, he'll hit back. I need to know you've got my back. Isabel, I've been in this game longer than you've been alive. I've got lawyers who eat CEOs for breakfast and journalists who'd kill for a story like this. You get me the evidence, I'll make sure Trent Wexler becomes a cautionary tale in every business school in America. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment on stage, the calculated cruelty of it. But more than that, I thought about patterns. Trent's first month as CEO, he'd fired the head of engineering for cultural misalignment. Month 2, the CFO had decided to pursue other opportunities. Month 3, 2 board members had quietly resigned. He'd been cleaning house, removing anyone who might question his methods or have the expertise to spot his lies. I'd lasted longer than most, probably because I'd been careful, professional, trying to work within the system. But eventually, everyone who knew how Virion actually operated had to go, which meant I wasn't the only one with an axe to grind. The next morning, I drove back to Seattle, my mind already working through possibilities. If Trent had been systematically removing competent people, then somewhere out there was a network of former Virion employees who'd seen what I'd seen, who'd questioned what I'd questioned, who'd been silenced just like me. I started with Marcus Webb, the former head of engineering. Marcus had built Virion's core technology stack from scratch, turning abstract algorithms into functional products. His firing had shocked everyone. The official reason was failure to adapt to agile methodologies, which was corporate speak for wouldn't play ball with Trent's impossible deadlines. I found him at a coffee shop in Ballard, hunched over a laptop, probably freelancing to pay the bills. He looked up when I approached, surprise flickering across his face. Isabel heard. What happened? Brutal. Mind if I sit? He gestured to the empty chair. Misery loves company. Right. Something like that, Marcus. Can I ask you something? When Trent fired you, was there a specific project you were working on that he seemed interested in? Marcus laughed bitterly. Interested, he was obsessed, kept asking about development timelines for products that didn't exist. When I told him we'd need at least 18 months to build what he was promising, he said I lacked vision. What kind of products? Advanced predictive analytics, real-time processing of unstructured data. Stuff that sounds great in a pitch deck but requires infrastructure we don't have. He wanted me to sign off on technical specs for vaporware. My pulse quickened. Did any of these phantom products have names? Oh yeah, he had a whole portfolio. CloudMind, DataForge, and something called Lucent Edge that was supposed to revolutionize decision-making AI. I told him it was technically impossible with our current resources. 2 weeks later, I was out. Lucent Edge. There it was again. Marcus, would you be willing to swear to that, in a legal setting? He studied me carefully. You're building a case. I'm gathering information. With whose backing? When I hesitated, he leaned forward. Come on, Isabel. You didn't drive to Ballard just to commiserate. Someone's helping you. Someone with power. I can't say yet, but if you're willing to help, to share what you know, I promise it'll be worth it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, you know what? Sure. I've got nothing to lose. Trent made sure of that when he blackballed me with every tech firm in Seattle. What do you need? Everything. Every impossible promise. Every fake timeline. Every document you were asked to sign that didn't align with reality. Can you do that? I've got copies of everything. Old habit from my startup days. Never delete anything until the statute of limitations runs out. We agreed to meet again in a few days. As I left the coffee shop, I felt the first stirrings of something that wasn't quite hope but wasn't despair either. It was momentum. My next stop was Rachel Winters, former CFO. Unlike Marcus, Rachel hadn't stayed in Seattle. I tracked her down to a small consulting firm in Portland, where she'd taken a position far below her previous status. We met in her office, a cramped space that probably cost a tenth of her old corner suite at Virion. I wondered when someone would come asking, she said after I explained why I was there. You're not the first to notice the numbers don't add up. Who else has noticed? The auditors, for one. But Trent brought in his own firm, one that specializes in creative accounting. They're not breaking laws, exactly, but they're bending them until they scream. She pulled out a flash drive from her desk drawer. I kept copies of the real books, the ones that show our actual revenue, not the projections Trent's been selling. The difference is substantial. How substantial? About $40 million. He's counting revenue from contracts that haven't been signed, products that haven't been delivered, partnerships that exist only on paper. It's a house of cards. And he's trying to sell it before the wind picks up. Would you testify to this? Rachel's smile was sad. Isabel, he destroyed my reputation. Implied I was embezzling. Though he never pressed charges because he knew they wouldn't stick. My name is mud in financial circles, so, yes, I'll testify. I'll swear on a stack of Bibles. I just want to see him burn. By the end of the week, I had a small army of the displaced and disgraced, former employees who'd been fired for asking questions, for refusing to participate in Trent's fiction, for simply knowing too much about how Virion actually operated. Each had a piece of the puzzle, documents and recordings and memories of conversations that painted a picture of systematic fraud. Tuesday arrived, and with it, my meeting with Clara. We met at a small cafe near Pike Place Market, far from Virion's offices. She looked tired, stressed in a way I'd never seen during our years working together. It's getting worse, she said without preamble. He's got everyone working on presentations for products that don't exist. The development team is in revolt, but they're too scared to speak up. He's hired enforcers, people whose only job is to report dissent. Like who? Brad Kellerman, for one. Calls himself Chief Innovation Officer, but really he's just Trent's spy. And Jennifer Wu, the new VP of Strategic Initiatives. Your replacement, technically, though she doesn't seem to know anything about strategy or initiatives. She slid a thumb drive across the table. Everything I could save, emails, documents, even some recorded meetings. Trent doesn't know that the conference room system automatically archives everything to the cloud. I pocketed the drive carefully. Clara, you're taking a huge risk. No, I'm doing my job. You're still my boss. As far as I'm concerned, Trent's just a temporary infection. That night, I went through Clara's files. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Not just inflated numbers and phantom products, but a deliberate campaign to deceive. Emails discussing how to massage data. Conversations about which board members could be manipulated and which needed to be removed. And most damning, a recorded meeting where Trent explicitly told his inner circle that they needed to close a sale before anyone looks too closely at what we're actually selling. But it was the Lucent Edge files that made my blood run cold. According to the documentation, it was a revolutionary AI system that could predict market trends with 97% accuracy. The promotional materials were gorgeous, full of graphs and technical specifications that would dazzle any buyer. There was just one problem: the code repository was empty. Lucent Edge wasn't in development. It wasn't in beta. It wasn't even a concept beyond marketing materials. It was pure fiction. A digital ghost designed to inflate Virion's value by hundreds of millions of dollars. I called Graham immediately. I found it, I said. Lucent Edge, it doesn't exist. Explain. It's vapor, marketing materials, and nothing else. No code, no developers assigned, no project timeline. But according to these documents, Trent's been shopping it to potential buyers as a finished product. He's taking meetings, giving demos. Demos of what? That's what we need to find out. Graham was quiet for a moment. Isabel, I need you to think carefully. Is there any way this could be legitimate? Some skunkworks project you weren't aware of. Graham, I ran strategic development. If Virion was building something this significant, I would have known. The resource allocation alone would have been impossible to hide. This is fraud, pure and simple. Then we need proof he's presenting it as real. Documents are one thing, but if we can catch him in the act, an idea formed. Dangerous, but potentially devastating. Graham, what if we gave him the opportunity? The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Graham would leverage his connections to create a shell company. Foresight Axis, supposedly a hot startup looking to acquire advanced analytics technology. Through intermediaries, they'd express interest in Virion's cutting-edge AI solutions, specifically Lucent Edge. Trent, eager to demonstrate his company's value, would have to show them something. It took 2 weeks to set up. 2 weeks during which I coordinated with my network of former employees, gathering more evidence, more testimony, more proof of Trent's deception. The picture that emerged was of a man who'd never intended to run Virion successfully. He'd been brought in to pump the valuation and flip the company, collecting a massive payout while leaving employees and shareholders with worthless stock in a hollow shell. The call came on a Thursday. Clara, risking everything, sent me a message. He took the bait. Demo scheduled for tomorrow, 2 p.m. PST, full dog and pony show. I was in Graham's home office when the Zoom call began. We'd hired a professional to play the role of Foresight Axis's CEO, someone who could ask the right questions without arousing suspicion. Hidden screen recording software captured everything in high definition. Trent appeared on screen, his usual black turtleneck replaced by a conservative suit. He was taking this seriously. Gentlemen, thank you for your interest in Virion's next-generation AI solutions. What I'm about to show you will revolutionize how businesses make decisions. For the next 45 minutes, Trent presented Lucent Edge as if it were a fully functional product. He showed graphs of its supposed performance, testimonials from beta users who didn't exist, integration specifications for APIs that had never been written. He answered technical questions with confident lies, promised deployment timelines that were pure fantasy. We're very selective about our partners, he said near the end. Lucent Edge represents years of development and millions in investment. But for the right buyer, someone who shares our vision, we're prepared to offer exclusive licensing. The actor playing our CEO asked about pricing. Trent, without hesitation, quoted a figure that would value the non-existent product at $48 million. When the call ended, Graham turned to me. We've got him. But I wasn't satisfied. Something Clara had mentioned nagged at me. Trent was preparing to sell Virion to a European conglomerate, Morelia Group. If that sale went through before we could act, he'd walk away with millions while the fraud only surfaced later. Too late to stop him. We need to move fast, I said. How quickly can you call a board meeting? Emergency session 48 hours, minimum. But Isabel, we need to be strategic. If we move too early, he might find a way to spin it. We need overwhelming force. That's when I remembered something. Clara had mentioned that all conference room meetings were automatically archived, if Trent had been discussing the fraud with his inner circle at the office. I called Clara. The conference room archives, how far back do they go? 6 months automatically. Why? Can you search them for any mentions of Lucent Edge or Morelia Group? I'll try. Give me a few hours. Those hours felt like days. I paced Graham's office, reviewing our evidence, planning our approach. We had financial fraud, testimony from multiple witnesses, and now video proof of Trent lying to potential buyers. But would it be enough? Clara's call came at midnight. Isabel, you need to hear this. She'd found it. A recorded meeting from 3 weeks ago. Trent with his inner circle, discussing the Morelia deal. The audio was clear. The due diligence is scheduled for next month. Trent's voice said, "By then, we need Lucent Edge to look operational. I don't care if you have to hire actors to play engineers. We close this deal, we all walk away rich." Someone else, probably Brad Kellerman. "What about the actual employees? Some of them are starting to ask questions." Then they can join Isabel in the unemployment line. "This company is a stepping stone, gentlemen. We're not here to build something. We're here to cash out." Graham listened to the recording twice. The second time, his face went from stern to genuinely angry. "He's not just defrauding buyers," he said. "He's deliberately destroying the company. My company. Our company," I corrected. "And we're going to save it." The emergency board meeting was called for Monday morning. Graham used his influence to ensure full attendance, even flying in board members who rarely participated. He gave them just enough information to guarantee their presence evidence of serious financial irregularities that required immediate attention. I spent the weekend preparing. Every document was organized, every piece of evidence cataloged. Former employees were briefed and ready to testify via video link if needed. The presentation I built was designed to be irrefutable, a step-by-step dismantling of Trent's house of cards. Monday arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for an execution. I dressed carefully, choosing the same suit I'd worn to my first board presentation years ago. If I was going to burn down everything Trent had built, I wanted to look like the professional I'd always been. The boardroom at Virion occupied the entire top floor, with views of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains. I arrived early, setting up my laptop and checking the video links one last time. Graham was already there, talking quietly with other board members as they arrived. Trent entered at exactly 9 a.m., flanked by Brad Kellerman and Jennifer Wu. He saw me and stopped dead, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and then a forced smile. "Isabel, this is unexpected. I thought we'd concluded our professional relationship." "We did," I said calmly. "I'm here in a different capacity today." Before he could respond, Graham called the meeting to order. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending on short notice. We have serious matters to discuss regarding the financial health and future of Virion Insights." Trent tried to take control. "If this is about the quarterly projections, I can assure you—" "Sit down, Trent." Graham's voice was steel. "You'll have your chance to respond. First, we're going to hear from Ms. Hartley, who has prepared a presentation on certain irregularities in our operations." I stood, remote in hand, and began. "Board members, what I'm about to show you documents systematic fraud perpetrated by our current CEO. This is not speculation or corporate politics. This is evidence." The first slide appeared, Virion's real revenue versus reported revenue. The gap was staggering. These numbers come from our internal systems, cross-referenced with actual contracts and deliverables. As you can see, we've been reporting revenue from sales that haven't closed, products that haven't shipped, and in some cases, customers who don't exist. Trent started to object, but Graham silenced him with a gesture. I continued, methodically laying out the evidence. The testimony from Marcus about impossible development timelines, Rachel's analysis of the cooked books, communications showing deliberate intent to deceive. Then I played the video of Trent selling Lucent Edge to Foresight Axis. "This product," I said as Trent's recorded voice made promises about revolutionary AI, "does not exist. There is no code. There are no developers. There is nothing but marketing materials and lies." The board members' faces ranged from shocked to furious. One of them, Patricia Holmes, who'd been instrumental in hiring Trent, looked physically ill. But I wasn't done. I played the audio from the conference room. Trent's voice filling the space. "This company is a stepping stone. Gentlemen, we're not here to build something. We're here to cash out." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, board member David Kim spoke. "Mr. Wexler, do you have any response to these allegations?" Trent stood, his usual confidence cracked but not broken. This is a coordinated attack by a disgruntled former employee. Isabel was terminated for poor performance and— Stop! Graham's voice cut through. Trent, we have forensic accountants standing by to verify every claim made here. We have testimony from a dozen former employees. We have recordings of you committing fraud. Your response to this is to attack the messenger. Trent's facade finally crumbled. You don't understand the pressure I was under. The board wanted growth, wanted innovation. I was delivering what you asked for. We asked you to run a company, Patricia Holmes said quietly, not to destroy it for personal gain. The vote was swift and unanimous. 12 board members, 12 votes for immediate termination. Trent Wexler was stripped of his position, his equity stake subject to clawback provisions, his reputation about to be shredded by the legal system. As security escorted him out the same security he'd used on me, he turned back, his eyes finding mine. You think you've won? You've just killed this company. No one will trust Virion after this gets out. That's where you're wrong, I said. Virion built trust through 15 years of honest work. You nearly destroyed it in 6 months of lies. We're not killing the company. We're saving it from you. The boardroom emptied slowly, members staying behind to discuss damage control and next steps. Graham approached me, looking older than I'd ever seen him, but somehow satisfied. You did good work, Isabel, thorough, professional, devastating. The board wants to offer you the interim CEO position while we search for a permanent replacement. I almost laughed. You want me to run the company that just fired me in front of 200 people. I want you to fix what Trent broke. You know Virion better than anyone. You know what's real and what's fiction. We need someone who can stabilize operations and restore confidence. I thought about it. The smart move would be to walk away, to let my vindication stand as victory enough. But then I thought about Clara, still fighting from the inside, about the engineers and analysts and salespeople who'd joined Virion to build something meaningful, about the products we'd created that actually helped businesses make better decisions. 6 months, I said. I'll give you 6 months to clean up the mess and find a real replacement, but I have conditions. Name them. First, every employee Trent fired for cultural misalignment gets a call. If they want their jobs back, they get them, with back pay. Second, we conduct a full audit publicly, acknowledging the fraud but demonstrating our commitment to transparency. Third, anyone who actively participated in the deception is gone. No golden parachutes, no quiet resignations. They leave in disgrace. Graham smiled for the first time that day. You drive a hard bargain. Done. The next 6 months were the hardest of my professional life. We hemorrhaged clients when news of the fraud broke. Stock price plummeted. The SEC opened an investigation that consumed thousands of hours and millions in legal fees. But we survived. More than that, we rebuilt. The employees who returned brought with them not just expertise, but renewed commitment. The clients who stayed appreciated our transparency in admitting fault and fixing it. New products, real ones, began to take shape. Lucentedge became industry shorthand for vaporware, the kind of cautionary tale Graham had promised. Trent Wexler was indicted on multiple counts of securities fraud. His trial became a media circus, each revelation more damning than the last. I testified, of course, sitting in that courtroom, facing the man who'd tried to destroy everything I'd helped build. I felt no satisfaction, just a cold certainty that justice, however delayed, was being served. He was convicted on all counts. The judge, in sentencing, noted the particular cruelty of his actions. You didn't just defraud investors, you destroyed careers, damaged lives, and betrayed the trust of hundreds of employees who believed they were building something meaningful. Your greed was matched only by your callousness. Trent got 8 years in federal prison and hundreds of millions in fines and restitution. His assets were frozen, his property seized. The man who'd worn designer turtlenecks while preaching disruption would spend the better part of a decade in federal khaki. On my last day as interim CEO, I called an all-hands meeting. The same conference room where I'd been publicly humiliated now held a very different energy. The company was smaller but stronger, focused but innovative. We'd weathered the storm. I want to thank all of you, I said, looking out at faces both familiar and new, for your faith, your hard work, and your refusal to let one man's greed define us. Virion Insights was built on a simple premise that good data leads to good decisions. We forgot that for a while. Let someone convince us that perception mattered more than reality. We won't make that mistake again. The applause was genuine, warm. As I left the stage walking, not being escorted, Clara intercepted me. "So what's next for you?" she asked. "I'm starting my own firm," I said. "Consulting, focusing on corporate governance and fraud prevention. Turns out, there's a market for executives who've been through the fire and know how to spot the smoke." Clara grinned. "Need an assistant?" "Always." A year later, my consulting firm had more clients than I could handle. Companies wanted someone who'd not only detected fraud, but had the courage to expose it. My rates were high, my standards higher. I specialized in asking uncomfortable questions and finding inconvenient truths. One morning, a package arrived at my office. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside was a flash drive and a note. "Found this in an old backup. Thought you might want it for your collection. M. Marcus." I plugged in the drive and found a folder labeled Trent's Greatest Hits. It was full of emails and messages from Trent's early days. His plans for Virion laid out in casual brutality. One message to an unknown recipient stood out. "The beauty of tech is that no one really understands it. You can promise anything, and by the time they realize it's impossible, you're already gone. Virion is perfect, established enough to have credibility, small enough to manipulate. Give me 6 months and I'll triple the valuation. What happens after that isn't my problem." I saved the file and sent a copy to the prosecutors. Even from prison, Trent was still providing lessons in how not to run a company. The epilogue to this story isn't about revenge or redemption, it's about the aftermath of both. Virion Insights survived and eventually thrived under new leadership. The employees who'd been cast aside found new opportunities, many becoming advocates for corporate transparency. The board members who'd enabled Trent's hiring instituted rigorous vetting procedures. And I learned that sometimes the best response to being knocked down isn't just getting back up. It's making sure the person who knocked you down never gets the chance to do it to anyone else. In my office, I keep a framed photo from that day at Glacier Lake Resort. Not of the humiliation on stage, but of the aftermath, me sitting in the golf cart, reading Graham's message on my phone. The moment when defeat turned into determination. Clients sometimes ask about it, and I tell them the story. How I was fired by a fraud, helped expose his crimes, and rebuilt my career on the foundation of that experience. They usually hire me on the spot. Turns out, executives who've survived corporate betrayal and emerged stronger are exactly what companies need in an era of startup bros and fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. Trent Wexler thought he was untouchable, protected by charm and connections and the willingness to lie without conscience. He learned what everyone who builds on deception eventually discovers: the truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone's motivated to dig it up. I was that someone. And while I don't take pleasure in his downfall, I do take satisfaction in knowing that Virion's real legacy isn't the scandal or the trial or the cautionary tale. It's the proof that integrity, however temporarily defeated, can ultimately prevail. The lake at Glacier Resort is still beautiful. I'm told. I haven't been back. Some places are better left as markers of where you've been, not destinations to revisit. But sometimes, on quiet mornings in my office, I think about that dock where Graham Locke offered me a chance to fight back. I took it. We won. And in the end, that's all that matters.